Hello, everybody, and welcome to Magical Journey. I'm your host, Daniel Cahoon. And before we get started with today's topic, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Uh, First and foremost, let me point you to the website, magicaljourney.com, where you can find all of the information about social media, anything from Facebook groups to the Magical Journey page and the Paranormal File page. There is links to my audio cast, which is just audio, obviously my RSS feed. There's links to X, Tumblr, where you can find photos of related topics to the Paranormal Files and other things related to Magical Journey. There's also TikTok, as long as it still exists, just a host of social media on there. So go check that out. And also, most importantly, go check out the new page, which has the magical merch on it. So I do have a line of merch dedicated to Magical Journey. There are two different logo options on there for you, and each one has at least 4 or 5 products attached to it. So please go get you some merch, do some free advertising for me, and some word of mouth to get this channel out there. Okay, today we're going to talk about, in the Paranormal Files number 9, we're going to talk about some open cases today. So in my last episode of the Paranormal Files, I mentioned the Amityville Horror, which is still an open case for me. I have not closed that case in the Paranormal Files yet, simply because I have not come to a lot of conclusions about that case. There's still some unanswered questions for me. However, there are some places too that I want to talk about today that are very much active and ongoing research and investigation for me, mostly research at this point. Decatur, Illinois has a few. Greenwood Cemetery, the Commons Burial Ground, Lincoln and Avon Theaters. Those theaters are really interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Hell's Hollow, another area that's very, just a very troubled area. And the Wabash train station are just some of the ones that are ongoing still in research and investigation for Decatur, Illinois. So let's talk a minute about the Lincoln and Avon theaters. First of all, I've been to the Avon Theater and actually sat down at the theater for a double feature of The Others and Stir of Echoes, the original Stir of Echoes. When I took the Haunted Decatur ghost tour at one point, and getting to watch the double feature of that was kind of part of the package. I tell you, it's really like a very creepy feeling in there. It's an old theater. It's obviously an old theater. They even still have one of the old original gas theater lights in there. It's just, you have this feeling the whole time you're in there, like you're being watched. It's just a very old building, and sitting there, especially in the upper balcony area where I was sitting to watch the movie, it felt like you were kind of back in time in a sense in there. It was very strange indeed. The Lincoln Theater, when I went inside the Lincoln during that ghost tour, I gotta tell you, like, especially like the bathrooms and so forth, they were very creepy. There was like some really creepy things that had happened in those rooms. Uh, and I felt very overwhelmed, I guess is a good way of putting it. It was, you had the feeling that you just should not be in there. It was just icky. That's the only thing I can really say about it. Uh, and make any sense of it. It was an icky feeling. Um, the Greenwood Cemetery was one of those places too. I mean, first of all, let's talk about it. Supposedly, Decatur is built over a cemetery itself, like downtown. Apparently, there was a cemetery that existed there before, and some of the bodies were exhumed and relocated, but not all of them, supposedly. So there's a lot of places in downtown, especially that are haunted or claims to be haunted. And it's just, it like, you just get the feeling that, like, walking through parts of Decatur, that you're touching a no-no spot. You know what I mean? It's just not a good feeling. It's a bad energy. Uh, I felt very nervous and antsy in a lot of those areas, and it was just like, get me out of here. So definitely, I would suggest, if you want to go to on a really good um, a really good place to just go on a ghost tour at and see a lot of stuff. You will find a lot of really, you'll find some good stuff there. You'll find a lot of good stories that will kind of bring you in, and will just kind of, I don't know, it's worth it. I'll just leave it at that. It's worth it. Um, Another place that I've been to for ghost tour, uh, the ghost tour experience, was Franklin, Tennessee. Now, let me talk about Franklin for a minute in the historic perspective, okay? And these, like, Franklin is definitely still an open file. There's a lot that I have not touched on yet with Franklin, because there's a lot that happened there. Of all the battles in the Civil War, the Battle of Franklin was the bloodiest of all of the battles. Um, the battle for Nashville was pretty bloody. And as far as like Tennessee goes, Shiloh battleground was definitely kind of ugly there. But Franklin, the Battle of Franklin was horrific. There's a lot of old buildings still left downtown that have uh, blood stains on the walls and floor of the building. Uh, there's just a lot of those buildings were used during the war uh, for doing emergency amputations, surgeries, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of horrific things that happened in most of those buildings down there. Some of the buildings that are featured on in the haunted Franklin tours, the Carter House, built in 1830. It was like right in the middle of it. This house was like literally right in the middle of the Battle of Franklin. The house was used by Union soldiers as a common post, while the Carter family huddled in the basement for safety. Um, Amidst the 5 hours of fighting, um, and the Carters were down there in the basement hiding with 23 other men and women who were kind of like huddling there for their safety. After the battle, this home was also turned into a makeshift field hospital, seeing many surgeries and amputations. With over 1,000 bullet holes in this house, the Carter family farm, office, and brick smokehouse has been recognized by the preservationists as two of the most heavily damaged buildings of the Civil War. This house is believed to be haunted by two of the Carter children, Todd and Annie. Todd was a Confederate soldier who had been fighting in the war for 3 years. He ended up dying in the Battle of Franklin at his childhood home. Visitors report seeing the brother and sister running around the home and tugging at people's clothes, and hearing unexplained voices. So the Carter house was definitely one of the places that was just a big, big part of the war fight itself. The Lutz house, built in 1858 by the German immigrant Johann Lutz. Johann and Margareta, I believe that's how I pronounce it, and their 6 children moved to America to escape war. And as they found themselves living on a battlefield before it was over with. The family sought refuge in the Carter family basement during the bloody battle. Cannonball was shot through the roof, the second floor of the Lutz house. If you visit, you will still see there is an indent from where the ball hit the first floor. The Lutz house became a field hospital intended for wounded Confederate soldiers during the war. Is considered the second most terrifying place in America. So there's 2 of the places in Franklin that are definitely part of ongoing investigation and research as far as I'm concerned, especially the research in. The Carton, and I was saying Carter, but it's Carton. Again, with the words today. Many of the visitors claim to see a ghost of a woman flying across the back porch and one of a Confederate soldier pacing the front porch, specifically seeing this during the month of October. Not scary at all. One of the reports there is of a young girl allegedly murdered before the war by a potential suitor. So there's a lot of stories behind the Carton house. I always feel like I'm pronouncing everything wrong today. So again, downtown Franklin, Tennessee, is a beautiful little area. It's inundated with old historic buildings and homes, a hotbed of paranormal activity. There is so much research to be done there in that area that it will never probably be a closed file, to be honest with you. And then there's what I call the haunted bridge down from Franklin there on the Natchez Trace. This bridge is set in a beautiful picturesque area on one side, when you look off and this bridge is really high up, it's very high up, which is why it has the reputation it has. If you look in one direction, there's this great old farmhouse with this beautiful farm around it. In the other direction, not so much stuff. But one of the features about this bridge that's very noticeable is that there is a unalive hotline at the station at least one end of the bridge, where you can actually pick it up, and if you are there to jump, which a lot of people go there to jump, that is the reputation for that bridge, because it's so high up and it's in such a desolate area that is very well known for having jumpers. And there's, like I said, there's literally a hotline to the unalive helpline, for people to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm having these feelings. I'm here at the bridge. The local Franklin County Sheriff Department, there's always somebody going back and forth patrolling the bridge. It's very visited, very heavily visited by not only locals, but out-of-state people who hear about the bridge. The bridge is very beautiful, actually. It really is. It's just part of a very, unfortunately, morbid history of the Franklin area. So again, that and Franklin, Tennessee, a case file that will never be closed, most likely. Old Green Eyes in the Chickamauga battlefield. So let's talk about Chickamauga, first of all. Chickamauga, pretty much a one intersection town, not very big. When I used to be in Chickamauga for a very short period of time, the old train depot was the library right downtown. Chickamauga National Park, the battlefield, is actually a very beautiful place. It's very big. It's very expansive. There's a lot of memorials and stuff there. And there's also the stories of the cryptid known as Old Green Eyes. Now, Old Green Eyes is said to roam the area. Some say Green Eyes is there to protect the area. Some say not so much so. There's a lot of rumors revolving around Chickamauga battlefield as being an area of satanic practice. A lot of evidence, apparently, of satanic rituals going on there and so forth. So Chickamauga is definitely an area that is definitely not, it's not a place that you want to like. It's just not a fun place. Okay, I'm gonna put it that way. My investigation into Old Green Eyes and the park, it's definitely an open case and probably will be again for a very long period of time. There's a lot of information about it. There's a lot of misinformation about it. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of weed through. So again, another place to expect to see more stuff over time coming through on. I'll definitely be doing more episodes on Old Green Eyes. So one of the things that I really want to look deeper into also is a murder that took place. Sorry about that. I had to um, reach to get my AirPods back on, or my headphones on charger. So one of the cases too that is probably one of the more and strange cases that is on my list of open cases still, which I think I'm about to take it off of open cases and actually close that file, because there's not a lot left to really find out about it. I don't think there's been any local stuff or current stuff happen with it, but the Corpsewood murders and from Corpsewood Manor. This was in the mountains of North Georgia in 1982. Corpsewood Manor was just kind of, it was an area that was built by two men who constructed this mountaintop compound on the outskirts of rural Trenton, Georgia, in 1970s. This was a gay couple that was really heavily into illegal substances and supposedly practiced Satanism or some kind of occult practice. And they were they were just kind of like, they were known for just kind of being party people, a lot of party people. So let me kind of like back up a little bit for just a moment and um, uh, Charles Schroeder, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, um, he was known for studying zoology and languages. He had earned a PhD in pharmacology. Um, he was described by his colleagues as being brilliant. Um, but he and his friend, uh, housekeeper and companion Joseph Odom, were the only two residents left. Odom was 12 years younger than Schroeder and only had like a fifth grade education, so he wasn't very bright. Uh, in one article that Schroeder uh, wrote in the Mother Earth News, he said about Odom, he learned far more about the world than I had with all of my degrees, and somewhere along the line, he developed a talent for whipping up meals fit for a king. In 1976, Schroeder received a modest inheritance after his mom died. Uh, he believed that this was a ticket to a new life. So he decided that he and his friend would go searching for a place to build a perfect little hideaway, so to say. His search led him to the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in North Georgia, where he discovered and eventually purchased a plot of 40 acres in Chattanooga County. He drove 10 hours to scout the property. He found hummingbirds, whippoorwills, butterflies, bobcats, great oaks, fungi, and rolling mountain woodland everywhere. In October of 1976, on his 50th birthday, he settled it by submitting his resignation letter to Loyola University, and he immediately began liquidating his home. Weeks later, the house was sold. By January 1977. Schroeder had fully dismantled his life in the heart of Chicago, and he and Odom would move to Georgia and build a life together there. That was their goal. So they went there. They built this amazing house. By the summer of the year that they moved there, the first floor of the castle-like structure was livable. Years later, a local investigator would tell the Atlanta Constitution that had been built using medieval building techniques. There are no square corners in the whole place. That was part of the thing, was there were no square corners in this house at all. Above the arch main entrance, Schroeder had erected a pink concrete gargoyle. That's rather creative. Macabre stained glass windows was part of the decor. One of them depicted a human skull, another featuring Baphomet, which is a symbol used for the Church of Satan. It's just like it was quite. This house was quite the spectacle. We'll just say that. So it was built on like atop a densely forested mountain ridge called Taylor's Ridge there in North Georgia. And there was, they called this area Devil Worshippers Mountain, or DW for short. There are people who have claimed to have seen men with machetes and machine guns patrolling the area. A lot of stuff related to that. There's a story that someone stole a brick from Corpsewood Manor and fell under a curse because of it. So as Schroeder and Oldham settled into their new life, rumors began to spread through the town about the two men in the castle on the ridge. Though they relocated for privacy, the two men made frequent trips to Tryon. After navigating winding dirt logging roads, they could be on the main highway in moments. And they were pursuing the aisles of the local Hurley grocery store there. Men quickly earned the reputation as being new to town strangers who dressed like hippies and drove a black Jeep with a pentagram painted on the side. That was kind of interesting in itself. So eventually, though, curious locals drove up Mountain View Road to investigate their strange new neighbors, uh, and would go to the entrance of the Corpsewood property. There was a wooden sign that greeted them with a warning, beware of the thing. Most likely a Adams family residence, a reference. However, there were several people that also believed that Schroeder had summoned a demon to guard the property. Others claimed to have seen robed figures holding seances in the woods. So by 1982, Schroeder and Oldham had been in Georgia for 5 years, and the Satanic Pact was in full force. Not just in Chattanooga County, pop culture was preoccupied by the devil and the occult. Less than a decade before, The Exorcist had horrified moviegoers with scenes of levitation, projectile vomit, and just a whole just plethora of gore and so forth. So Corpsewood Manor, had developed a kind of a very dark, macabre reputation, and it was widely known as home to two gay men, at least one of whom was a Satanist. Corpsewood Manor became a lightning rod for suspicion. As the men became more familiar and got known more to the locals, Corpsewood Manor became kind of like a party place. And Schroeder would play his golden harp for guests. Yes, he had one of those. There was just a lot of festive stuff. It was it was definitely like one of those places that was all about the thing. There was one thing in particular that really caught the attention of people, though, and that was the after dinner activities. Um, Next to the manor, the men built a 3-story wooden structure to house their chickens and store food. On the third floor of the chicken house, though, accessible only by a ladder leading up the narrow wooden opening, was a single room painted pink. The room was sparsely furnished with gas lamps, a few old mattresses, and a considerable collection of pornography. Dubbed the Pink Room, it served as a personal pleasure chamber. And many evenings, Corpsewood Manor would that everything would kind of like end up centering around the Pink Room. Participants reported the encounters were consensual, free of judgment, and often fueled with heavy pours of homemade wine. A journal was available for guests to record their experiences and their preferences. As stories from the Pink Room emerged, rumors about the two men being involved in devil worship, hosting sex parties at their mountainside castle, kind of billowed through this conservative community, and it wouldn't be long until the wrong people found out. So let's go to 1982, when a 17-year-old named Avery Brock wandered into the Corpsewood property. Brock, an avid hunter with from nearby Walker County had lived a hard life already. Brock's father had kicked him out of his home at a young age. Schroeder happily greeted him with permission to hunt on the land. Over time, Brock became friends with the two men and even joined them in the Pink Room. After several visits to Corpsewood property, Brock told his friend and roommate Tony West about the men on the mountain. At 30, West was much older than Brock and had his own history of trouble. Throughout his teens and 20s, he had bounced between various jails and mental institutions. A really great person. Brock and West suspected that the two men were wealthy and hiding their riches inside the manor. In the privacy of their shared trailer, Brock and West began devising a scheme to ambush and rob the men. On December 12th, 1982, they invited two of Brock's teenage friends to accompany them to the house, and the two teens, obviously oblivious to the plot, loaded into Wes's car alongside Brock, and the four began winding their way up Mountain View Road en route to the Corpsewood Manor. Minutes after they arrived, they were all climbing the ladder to the Pink Room, where a lantern, kerosene heater, and a couple of mattresses awaited them. Brock brought with him a can of Tootaloo, which was a homemade concoction of alcohol, paint thinner, and glue that could be huffed for a cheap high. Not sounding like a good time here. Only Schroeder joined them as Odom stayed in the main house to clean up after dinner. After several minutes of small talk, Brock told the group he needed to fetch more Tootaloo and disappeared down the ladder. Instead, he retrieved a rifle from the trunk of the car. The plan was now in motion. According to testimony from witnesses, Schroeder chuckled at the sight of Brock returning with the gun. He even made a joke saying bang, bang. Moments later, Brock lunged toward him, grabbed the former professor by the hair, pressed a knife against his neck, and began interrogating him about the hidden fortune. Schroeder calmly explained that they didn't keep cash in the Corpsewood Manor. What little money they had was in a local bank. Brock altered course. He descended the ladder and stormed toward the main house in search of Odom. Within seconds, the sound of gunshot echoed across Taylor's Ridge. Brock fired a volley of bullets at Odom and their two dogs, executing them all at point blank range. Hearing the gunshots, West forced Schroeder and the two terrified teenagers down the ladder into the castle. Once again, they demanded that Schroeder turn over his money. Overwhelmed at the sight of his beloved partner, Schroeder pulled away from his interrogators. Another gunshot rang out, and Schroeder fell to the floor. So Brock and West began ransacking the house and desperately searching for a hoard of cash, finding none. They grabbed several items of little value, threw them in Schroeder's Jeep. They hauled Schroeder's golden harp to the vehicle, and they realized it wouldn't fit. The four of them left the crime scene and went to the trailer, where West threatened to kill the two teenagers if they told anybody about the murder. The two men planned to flee to Mexico. Obviously, that didn't work very well. They pulled into a dimly lit rest stop outside of Vicksburg, Mississippi, where they decided to swap Schroeder's Jeep for something more nondescript. They forced this one guy out of his car and led him in a grove of trees where Phelps, um, who was an army officer, I guess, tried to escape, and West shot and killed him. There was 4 days passed back in Georgia before anyone knew something had gone wrong at Corpsewood Manor. A friend of Shutter's and Oldham stopped by for a visit, and after discovering the gruesome crime scene, raced into town to notify the police. Deputies from Chattanooga County Sheriff's Office were at Corpsewood within an hour. They found the bloodstained walls, overturned furniture, and bullet casings. Sheriff Gary McConnell called the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the State Crime Lab. Corpsewood Manor was under siege again, and this time it was a police forensic investigation. They discovered a crime scene like no other. Satanic statues, paintings, whips, chains, a woman's wig, pornography, vials of LSD, and human skulls. Yeah. So the story it literally took off. It took off in a big way. And there's, it's very sad. Like the legal proceedings began in 1983. Brock admitted to killing Odom and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms. West was charged with murdering Schroeder, but pleaded innocent according to case material. West claimed the murders were an act of vengeance for the embarrassment suffered by Brock when he had allowed Dr. Schroeder to perform oral sex on him during an earlier visit. Wow. This story is really dirty and really disgusting, actually. So eventually, Corpsewood Manor, though, mysteriously burned down. There are parts of it left. There's a lot of rumors of it being haunted, being plagued by demonic entities and that sort of thing. Again, this is a case that is a file that will be open for many, 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 many years, most likely. Maybe not that long, but it will stay open for a while. So Corpsewood Manor is definitely an ongoing paranormal file investigation research. There's quite a bit of information that I'm trying to glean now. Like I said, I'm working on Bachelor's Grove is definitely one of the hot topics I'm working on right now, as well as Haunted Decatur. The cryptids of Chicago, another hot topic that I'm working on right now. And of course, I'm doing some research on the Nephilim. For those of you who believe in the Nephilim and believe that cryptids are descendants of the Nephilim, that's kind of where I'm going with that, is to search out and seek that truth, whether that is true or not. The connection between Corpsewood Manor and the Church of Satan with Anton LaVey, and Anton LaVey's connection to Chicago, all kind of come into play on my interest in wanting to research and investigate these areas and these stories. So do expect more information from time to time about these on the files. I just got to tell you, like, when it comes to the research that I'm doing, sometimes my head kind of spins. I mean, it really does. The LBL Land Between the Lakes, always going to be an open file, probably. There's so much information that comes out about that on a continuous basis that it would be hard to close that file, that case. I find especially the 1982 massacre to be a very big point of information, misinformation, a lot worth researching about that. So again, something very much worth watching out for and keeping in touch with is any ongoing investigation that I do on the LBL. The Chicago cryptid story, definitely the Chicago Mothman sightings, which a lot of those revolve around the Little Village area, which is largely Hispanic. There's a lot of information to be had with those sightings. And so that's an ongoing, very open research and investigation area still. All of these will be in the upcoming weeks and months of 2025 will be stories that you will hear and see bits and pieces of and information gleaned. I will be posting photos and videos and articles about in the groups and the pages. So pay attention to that. And yeah, so that's kind of a recap, if you will, of some of the open cases that I am still working on at this point with the Paranormal Files, and things that you can expect to see and hear more of over the next, like I said, few weeks and months of the year. So there you have it. And as always, may your journey always be magical.
I've waited for so long to see when you come back to me. Through the wars and battles that were lost, we're born again, it's you and me. The rest is history. Past lives. Past lives. We danced together on different floors in 1500 or 1504. We must have been lovers, we must have been something in our past lives.